Surah Baqarah, verses 6 to 7. Surely for those who have disbelieved, it is all the same whether you warn them or you warn them not. They would not believe. Allah has set a seal on their hearts and on their hearings, and on their eyes there is a covering, and for them there lies a mighty punishment. After affirming the Holy Quran as the book of guidance and as being beyond all doubt, the first 5 verses of the present surah refer to those who derive full benefit from this book, and whom the Holy Quran has named as mu'minun, true Muslims, or muttaqun, the God-fearing, and also delineate their characteristic qualities which distinguish them from others. The next 15 verses speak of those who refuse to accept this guidance, and even oppose it out of sheer spite and blind malice. In the time of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, there were 2 distinct groups of such people. On the one hand were those who came out in open hostility and rejection, and whom the Holy Quran has termed as kafirun, disbelievers, and on the other hand there were those who did not, on account of their moral depravity and greed, had even the courage to speak out their minds and to express their disbelief clearly, but adopted the way of deceit and duplicity. They tried to convince the Muslims that they had faith in the Holy Quran and its teachings, that they were as good a Muslim as any, and would support the Muslims against the disbelievers. But they nursed denial and rejection in their hearts, and would, in the company of disbelievers, assure them that they had nothing to do with Islam, but mixed with Muslims in order to deceive them and to spy on them. The Holy Quran has given them the title of munafiqun, hypocrites. Thus these 15 verses deal with those who refuse to believe in the Holy Quran. The first 2 are concerned with open disbelievers, and the other 13 with hypocrites, their signs and characteristics, and their ultimate end. Taking the first 20 verses of this surah together in all their detail, one can see that the Holy Quran has, on the one hand, pointed out to us the source of guidance, which is the book itself, and on the other, divided mankind into 2 distinct groups on the basis of their acceptance or rejection of this guidance. On the one side are those who have chosen to follow and to receive guidance, and are hence called mu'minun, true believers, or muttaqun, the God-fearing. On the other side are those who reject the guidance and deviate from it, and are hence called kafirun, disbelievers, or munafiqun, hypocrites. People of the first kind are those whose path is the object of the prayer at the end of Surah Al-Fatiha. Sirat al-ladhina an'amta alayhim, the path of those on whom you have bestowed your grace. And people on the second kind are those against whose path refuge has been sought. غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ وَلَا الضَّالِّينَ, not of those who have incurred your wrath, nor of those who have gone astray. This teaching of the Holy Quran provides us with a fundamental principle. A division of mankind into different groups must, in order to be meaningful, be based on differences in principle, not on considerations of birth, race, color, geography, or language. The Holy Quran has given a clear verdict in this respect. It was He that created you, yet some of you are disbelievers and some of you are believers. Surah number 64, verse number 2. As we have said, the first 2 verses of this surah speak of those disbelievers who had become so stubborn and obstinate in their denial and disbelief that they were not prepared to hear the truth or to consider a clear argument. In the case of such depraved people, the usual way of Allah has always been and is that they are given a certain kind of punishment even in this world. That is to say, their hearts are sealed and their eyes and ears stopped against the truth. And insofar as truth is concerned, they become as if they have no mind to think, no eyes to see, and no ears to listen. The last phrase of the second verse speaks of the grievous punishment that is reserved for them in the other world. It may be observed that the prediction that la yu'minun, they shall not believe, is specifically related to those disbelievers who refused to listen to the Holy Prophet ﷺ, and who, as Allah knew, were going to die as disbelievers. This does not apply to disbelievers in general, for there were many who later accepted Islam. What is kufr, infidelity? As for the definition of kufr, disbelief, we may point out that lexically the word means to hide, to conceal. Ingratitude is also called kufr, because it involves the concealing or the covering up of the beneficence shown by someone. In the terminology of the Sharia, kufr signifies the denial of any of those things in which it is obligatory to believe. For example, the quintessence of Iman, as well as the very basis of the Islamic creed, is the requirement that one should confirm with one's heart and believe with certitude everything that the Holy Prophet ﷺ has brought down to us from Allah, and which has been established by definite and conclusive proof. Therefore, a man who has the temerity to question or disregard even a single teaching of this kind will be described as a kafir, disbeliever or infidel. The meaning of indhar, warning, by a prophet. In translating the first of these two verses, we have used the English verb to warn for the Arabic word andhar. This word actually signifies bringing news which should cause alarm or concern, while ibshar signifies bringing good news which should make people rejoice. Moreover, indhar is not the ordinary kind of warning meant to frighten people, but one which is motivated by compassion and love, just as one warns one's children against fire or snakes or beasts. Hence, a thief or a bandit or an aggressor who warns or threatens cannot be called a nadhir, warner. The latter is a title specifically reserved for the prophets ﷺ, for they warn people against the pains and punishments of the other world out of their compassion and love for their fellow men. In choosing this title for the prophets, the Holy Quran has made the subtle suggestion that for those who go out to reform others, it is not enough merely to convey a message, but that they must speak to their listeners with sympathy, understanding, and a genuine regard for their good. In order to comfort the Holy Prophet ﷺ, the first of these verses tells him that some of the disbelievers are so vain, arrogant, and opinionated that they, in spite of recognizing the truth, stubbornly persist in their refusal, and are not prepared to hear the truth or to see obvious proofs, so that all the efforts he makes for reforming and converting them will bear no fruit, and for them it is all one whether he tries or not. The next verse explains the reason, that is, Allah has set a seal on their hearts and ears, there is a covering on their eyes, and all the avenues of knowing and understanding are thus closed, and now it would be futile to expect any change in them. A thing is sealed so that nothing may enter it from outside. The setting of a seal on their hearts and ears also means that they have altogether lost the capacity for accepting the truth. The Holy Quran describes the condition of these disbelievers in terms of their hearts and ears having been sealed, but in the case of the eyes it refers to a covering. The subtle distinction arises from the fact that an idea can enter the heart from all possible directions, and not from one particular direction alone. And so can a sound enter the ears. An idea or a sound can be blocked out only by sealing the heart and ears. On the contrary, the eyes work only in one direction and can only see the things which lie in front of them. If there is a covering on them, they cease to function. Favor withdrawn by Allah is a punishment. These two verses tell us that the other world is a place where one would receive the real punishment for one's disbelief or for some of one's sins. One may, however, receive some punishment for certain sins even in this world. Such a punishment sometimes takes a very grievous form. That is, the divine favor which helps one to reform oneself is withdrawn, so that, ignoring how one's deeds are to be assessed on the Day of Judgment, one keeps growing in disobedience and sin, and finally comes to lose even the awareness of evil. In delineating such a situation, certain elders have remarked that one punishment for an evil deed is another evil deed which comes after, and one reward for a good deed is another good deed which comes after. According to a hadith, when a man commits a sin, a black dot appears on his heart. This dot disturbs him, just as a smudge on a white cloth is always displeasing to us. But if, instead of asking Allah's pardon for the first sin, he proceeds to commit a second, another dot shows up. Thus, with every new sin, the black dots go on multiplying till the whole heart turns dark, and now he can no longer see good as good, nor evil as evil, and grows quite incapable of making such distinctions. The Holy Prophet ﷺ added that the Holy Quran uses the form ra'in, rust, for this darkness, as in Mishkat from the Musnad of Ahmad and Trimidi. No, but what they did has rusted their hearts. Surah number 83, verse number 14. According to another authentic hadith reported by Tirmidhi from the blessed companion Abu Hurairah raziyallahu anh, the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam has said, when a man commits a sin, his heart grows dark, but if he seeks Allah's pardon, it becomes clear again. It should be carefully noted that in announcing that it is all one whether the Holy Prophet ﷺ warns the disbelievers or not, the Holy Quran adds the condition alayhim for them, which clearly indicates that it is all one for the disbelievers alone and not for the Holy Prophet ﷺ, for he would in any case get a reward for bringing the message of Allah to his fellow men and for his efforts to teach and reform them. That is why there is not a single verse in the Holy Quran which should dissuade the Holy Prophet ﷺ from calling even such people to Islam. From this we may infer that the man who strives to spread the word of Allah and to reform his fellow men does always get a reward for his good deed, even if he has not been effective. A doubt is removed. We may also answer a question which sometimes arises in connection with the second of these two verses, which speaks of the hearts and the ears of the disbelievers having been sealed and of their eyes being covered. We find a similar statement in another verse of the Quran. No, but what they did has rusted their hearts. Surah number 83, verse number 14, which makes it plain that it is their arrogance and their evil deeds themselves that have settled on their hearts as rust. In the verse under discussion, it is this very rust which has been described as a seal or a covering. So there is no occasion here to raise the objection that if Allah Himself has sealed their hearts and blocked their senses, they are helpless and cannot be held responsible for being disbelievers, and hence they should not be punished for what they have not themselves chosen to do. If we consider the two verses together, we can clearly see why they should be punished. In adopting the way of arrogance and pride, they have willfully and out of their own choice destroyed their capacity for accepting the truth, and thus they themselves are the authors of their own ruin. But Allah, being creator of all the actions of His creatures, has in verse 2, number 7, attributed to Himself the setting of a seal on the hearts and the ears of the disbelievers, and has thus pointed out that when these people insisted, as a matter of their own choice, on destroying their aptitude for receiving the truth, Allah produced, as is His way in such cases, the state of insensitivity in their hearts and senses.